Subject this morning, do we reincarnate? What do you think? How many think we do? How many are not sure? How many think we don't? Well, that's good. No one is, well, perhaps one or two think we don't, but it's either between we do or we're not sure. So that's good. That's a good attitude. Now let us discuss just a bit, do we reincarnate? We should not feel too bad, that is, if we kind of feel it's hopeless in answering this question, because we must realize one thing, it's God's greatest secret, this reincarnation. It's His greatest secret, because on the obscurity of it, on that depends first whether this drama of life continues. If everybody knew the answer to this drama of life, I think it would soon end. So on that obscurity depends the mystery which determines the prolongation, the continuation of this drama of life, this cosmic dream. And secondly, if it was common knowledge, if everyone knew about reincarnation, no one would make the effort to know the one underlying eternal consciousness which has produced all things. No one would make the effort to know that consciousness, and by making that effort, get out of the delusion. You see? So we shouldn't feel too bad if we don't know all the answers about reincarnation. But one thing I can say is this, that there is no question of a doubt. We can satisfy ourselves theoretically, and I think we can do it this morning, as to whether we reincarnate or not, but we will never satisfy ourselves fully until we merge with the one underlying consciousness, the dreamer, God Himself. When we have that consciousness, and it is His consciousness which is sitting in each and every one of us, then we'll know all the answers. Then we'll know fully about, do we reincarnate? So let us realize we can satisfy ourselves, and I think we will this morning, in a theoretical manner. Those of you who heard the Bible interpretation, I think you will agree that it sounds reasonable. But until you really will be satisfied, you must know that dreamer's consciousness, cosmic consciousness, because all lives, including yours and mine, all vehicles, are a product of that one consciousness. When you know that, then you'll know every dream that ever was in that consciousness, including your previous lives, my previous lives, all the lives of all people. So that's the answer to the question, do we reincarnate? When you want to surely know the dreamer. And we can do that. But let us go on now to the theoretical part of it and realize this one thing. The Master suggested a way of thought which will help us in understanding this question of reincarnation. He told me many times, and he always said, never forget the dream consciousness, your own dream consciousness. Now, your own consciousness can be likened to the consciousness of God the Father. You dream, do you not? And a part of your consciousness, through the astral light flowing through the little films within us, produces the dream consciousness. Now, in part of that dream, you can live this life. You can continue it, make another character to come again as a little baby and grow up and all sorts of things. You can do all things in that dream consciousness. You can have several vehicles, can you not? Now remember, we are made in the image of God, and our consciousness can be likened to God the Father. In the same way, the dreamer, cosmic consciousness, God the Father, has produced this cosmic dream. Why can He not? Why does He not cause characters to come in one vehicle for a little bit? The vehicle wears out, but the underlying consciousness takes another vehicle, just like in your dream. The underlying consciousness takes another character in your dream. What's the difference? There isn't any. So I think that we do reincarnate. Remember, that's the Master's suggestion. When you feel, well, I can't answer it, it's too deep for me, think of the dream. Close your eyes, make your body. Throw it away. Bring another one. Live again. So God does with his great cosmic dream. Now, going on just a bit, first let us discuss points against reincarnation. Points against reincarnation. Now, the one great argument is this, against reincarnation. I don't remember living before. So how can I say I will reincarnate, which is a good argument. Others say, no one ever came back from the other side to tell me about it. How do I know I ever lived before and will live afterwards? Which is right. But deep within the human breast is the idea that this is not the whole business. This is not the end. And that we will live again, and perhaps we lived before. But the main argument is, I don't remember it. How can I be expected to believe this business of reincarnation? That's right. But how much do you remember? How much does the ordinary person remember, even of this life? I don't remember anything. Sometimes I think I've lost my memory. Don't remember anything. But in the omniscience of God, you can know those things. So memory should not be and is not the deciding factor of this question, do we reincarnate? Memory is not the deciding factor. Because, as I have said, we cannot remember even in this life things that have passed not too long ago. But there are those, as the saints, who do remember. Who remember what happens after death, remember entering into the new vehicle, and remember from then on being born again. Why? How do they do it? They don't lose the consciousness, the continuity of consciousness of the dreamer's consciousness, that's all. So just because we cannot do it, we shouldn't say it can't be done. Memory is not the test, not a fair test on this question, do we reincarnate? It is this one point, the fact that we cannot have that continuity of consciousness from one birth to another, that keeps us in delusion. Don't you see? That's the point that keeps us in the drama, in the darkness of the drama, the darkness of delusion. Why? Because God made it that way. So the drama would go on. God made it that way. And we have in the Bhagavad Gita statement just to that effect. In the seventh discourse, 27th line, we read as follows. All men walk the universe wholly deluded. Imagine it. Everyone is in delusion. Even the Master told me, when a liberated soul, as the saint takes a body, he takes on some delusion. What chance have we? All who walk this world, this universe, said Lord Krishna, are walking in delusion, walk in a deluded way, wholly deluded. So you can see God made it that way. He made it so that the continuity of consciousness would be broken. That keeps the drama going. If not, the drama would cease. Now, that doesn't mean that we can never get out. That's the important thing. Lord Krishna also said, and remember, Krishna was Jadava, the Krishna, King Jadava, who had Christ consciousness. He said, all men walk the world wholly deluded. He also said, the next line or two, get out of my delusion. Get out of my Maya. Get out of this idea that the drama of life is the reality. Get out of my delusion. So we can get out of it. Why? We're made in the image of God. That's why. We can get out of this duality of consciousness of this dream, merge in the one eternal consciousness of God, that of the dreamer. Then we'll know not only this life, previous lives, but the lives of all. So that is the answer to the question, do we reincarnate? Now let us go on further to the points favoring reincarnation. These are the ones I'm interested in more than that other, because my memory doesn't act very well at times. And I'm sure you all feel the same. In fact, I don't want it to act very well. I don't want to remember many things. But there are certain positive points about reincarnation which are worth remembering. And here they are. We have first the testimony of the saints. That's very important. There are certain characters in this life of ours which set the example, which give us the inspiration, and they are the saints. They're great ones. Now let us consider first the testimony of the saints. And we have, in the fourth discourse in the Bhagavad Gita, the fifth line, Lord Krishna speaking again. Now he says, he was talking to Arjuna. Arjuna complained like you and I might complain. I don't remember anything about previous life. So Lord Krishna says, many births have been left behind by me and by thee, O Arjuna. I know them all, said Lord Krishna, but thou knowest not thine. So there's the answer. Lord Krishna was an incarnation of God's omniscient consciousness. So he said, many births have passed between both of us. I remember mine, you do not remember yours. So there was one saint who did remember. Why? Because he was one with the dreamer's consciousness. And just like in your own dream, you can create your dream and you can remember your dream if you put your mind on it, so to speak. You can remember every character of that dream. So, in God's omniscient consciousness, everything is there. Every incarnation that ever was. People say, oh, we pass in the omniscience of God into nirvana without any identification of individuality. That's not so. Just as you can remember your dream, so every dream in God's omniscience can be remembered. Don't you think we're going to meet those people we loved and we lived with? As the Master said, almost every one of us have been related. Imagine it. Perhaps you were my wife and I was your husband. Who knows what went on? It's all in the omniscience of God. If you want to know all about it, know his omniscience. Know his consciousness. So we're all pretty well acquainted, although we just have forgotten it, that's all. But these are facts. These are things the Master said, and he never lied to me, and you can read it in the Preceptor Teachings. So there we have the testimony of the great Krishna, one of the greatest saints, Jadava the Krishna. King Jadava, who had Christ consciousness. Jesus, who had Christ consciousness. Jesus the Christ. And each and every one of us can be a Christ. We can have Christ consciousness. Now going on to the testimony of another saint, the great Babaji, Supreme Master Babaji of this channel of God, who is still living and has passed beyond the lifespan of an ordinary mortal. He, when he initiated Lardy Marsh into Kriya Yoga, brought back to his memory his previous life where he meditated with him. The great Babaji showed him his blanket and his begging bowl and even gave him a great banquet as symbolic of his previous existence with him. So there you have the testimony of another saint, that the previous lives can be remembered when you have the consciousness of the dreamer. Now let us come down to our time, perhaps a little nearer home, a testimony of the actions of our own master, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji. When he went to India in 1935, he went by the way of England, and my son was with him, and he told me these things, and in fact the Master told me. He was in the Tower of London, and they were looking around, sightseeing, and he saw up on one part of it a little corner that he didn't seem satisfied with, and he says, isn't there a lavatory there, or whatever they called them in those previous times? And the guide said, no, there's nothing there, and the Master insisted. Well, they got the curator of the Tower of London, and they came and pulled away certain things, and there was the toilet, which the Master had evidently remembered being around there. And he told us several of his incarnations. One was William the Conqueror, it is generally known, so I'm not telling something I shouldn't. And also, they were out in some place, Stonehenge, I think it was, and the Master said to my son, he was just at the right age to, to take it in the right way, and he said, I was here. He wrote us, and he said, Master said that he was here about 4,500 years ago. In that age. So these things are very interesting. Another point that comes to my mind is that the Master, as Vyasa wrote the Bhagavad Gita many, many years ago, took the character of Arjuna. This he has told to some disciples. And I remember he was talking to me, and he kept emphasizing Vyasa, Vyasa. And one passage it says there that, Arjuna, thou art the only one to behold, to be given the privilege of beholding the awful form of God. And thou hast not seen it with these two human eyes, but with the single eye of the soul. And he used to keep saying to me, if you saw the awful form of God, you'd be frightened. And I wondered why he kept telling me. And later, I find out that it was he who was Arjuna. So there you have the testimony of some saints as to the question, solving the question, do we reincarnate? Now the Bible testimony I have given you. I won't go through it again because the time is getting short, but there you have definite points referring to the fact that we do reincarnate. And there are many other points that can be brought up in the Bible, but I've given you enough to keep you busy thinking about it, meditating upon it. Now, the most convincing argument in favor of reincarnation is this. It is in the inequalities and paradoxes of life, the inequalities of human existence, the injustices. Look about you. You take the human race, for instance. You take the infants. Some live a long time, a normal life. Some just a day or so and they're gone. Some have healthy bodies, and some are sick from the day they're born. Some people, babies and adults too, also have inherited tendencies, subject to different sorts of diseases and troubles and so forth. Some with mental troubles, some with circulatory troubles, digestive troubles. Others do not have those things. How do you explain these inequalities? And then going on, when a person, these infants, some are born in spiritual homes, and some are born in places not so spiritual. Now going on to the case of adults, the social standing of people, how different it is. Some who shouldn't be there are on the top of society, if you want to be there. And others, wonderful characters, do not seem to have any position in life. Then you take the financial status of people. Some very intelligent people cannot make a nickel, cannot hardly have enough to get along with, and others, not so intelligent perhaps, everything they touch turns to gold. Why? This clearly points out the law of causation. It brings in, without question of a doubt, the law of karma, that a previous cause has been set up and that cause must be fulfilled. The result must be forthcoming. You cannot explain it except, perhaps, that that action was done before which produced these definite results. And so it does point out through these injustices in life, paradoxes, inequalities, that there was a previous cause that brought it about. Take in the field, for instance, of prodigies, artists, scientists, musicians, mathematicians. Look at Einstein, who has left us. And then you take these musicians. Nothing to it. Play easily. Where did that come from? The previous cause was laid up. Then you take mathematicians. I told you one time here about the young Hindu boy who could multiply mentally 60 digits times 60 digits. Did you ever try it? Don't. How do those things happen? It is a universally accepted axiom that these inequalities cannot be reconciled unless we accept that there was some future, some previous form of existence. So that in itself is the greatest thing, the greatest point in favor of reincarnation. The injustices, the inequalities, the paradoxes of this drama of life, this cosmic dream. And so finally, in closing, we can at least answer the question, do we reincarnate in a theoretical way as yes. But we should not forget that if we become one with the consciousness, the underlying universal consciousness of God, the consciousness of the dreamer, we will not only answer yes in theory, but we will answer it through realization. And having that consciousness, then we will know without question of a doubt all the lives that ever existed in the great omniscience of God's consciousness. The sparrow's fall is noted. Don't you think one life would be noted? Certainly it will. So we must know the consciousness of the dreamer, the one underlying eternal consciousness of God. In that, when we're one with that, all lives will be known. All of our lives, the lives of everyone. So that's why Larry Marshall said what? He said, do a little Kriya each day. Do a little Kriya each day. Why? Because he knew that would give you the consciousness of the dreamer. And having that, you would know all things. Jesus also said the same thing. What did he say? Seek first the kingdom of heaven. Seek first the consciousness of the dreamer, which is cosmic consciousness, and has produced heaven and earth and all things. So Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added unto you. You will know reincarnation. The great Babaji also said, a little of this religion will save one from dire suffering. A little of this religion will take you gradually to the oneness with the consciousness of the dreamer, the great light of the infinite Father which is all around. Know that. You will be satisfied as to the question, do we reincarnate? And so the way to be fully satisfied with your answer to the question, do we reincarnate, is to live the life of self-realization. Live it. Live it. Live that one life. Follow its techniques. Follow the techniques of self-realization, fellowship, yoga. And then you will know, not in a theoretical manner, but you will know in actuality through realization that you are a child of God, one with his great omniscient consciousness. Having that, then you can answer the question, do we reincarnate?